We want to go ahead now and bring in attorney Brian Claypool for a little bit more insight on this. Brian, can you hear me?
Yeah, Bill, I'm here.
Okay, perfect. First off, thanks for joining us. I assume you're looking at these same live pictures that we're looking at right now. One of the things I've noticed, being a street reporter for many years now, including in the LA market for several, is the posture of those officers, those deputies on scene, the SWAT team there. They've got their backs turned to that white van. They're not taking an active posture in terms of any potential danger coming to that vehicle. What are you noticing about this crime scene, and what does it say to you?
Yeah, Bill, nice to be back with you. Just to let your viewers know, I live about 15 minutes from Monterey Park, not far from there. It's a very quaint community, about 60,000 folks, 65% Asian, about 25% Hispanic. So this is a really nice part of LA, a lot of businesses, so people had their guard down celebrating. One thing I do want to mention is we've now learned through your reporting that if this is the guy that did the killing, he had several guns, right? Because they apprehended the gun at the shooting. Then you had the incident in Alhambra after, where they disarmed him. Then, if he's in that white van having killed himself, then that's a third gun that he had. But getting back to your question, I mean, it looks like he probably has killed himself in the van because of the posture of the police officers. They don't look like incredibly alarmed, like they're confronting somebody that really poses a risk to them. That said, Bill, I will tell you, having been a survivor of the Las Vegas shooting, I've spent the last 5+ years trying to figure out how we can prevent mass shootings. And if that guy in that white van is the killer, we're going to then have to dissect his background, right? How did he get access to multiple guns, right? What is his mental health background? Does he have a prior criminal record? Let's look into that, find out if he has, and if there's something in his record that could have been a red flag to try to have prevented this from happening.
Brian, this is Jillian. At what point do investigators start considering possible motives for the single mass shooting or potentially attempted other incident nearby in Alhambra?
Yeah, great question. So I have two views on that. My visceral reaction, knowing the Monterey Park area, knowing the Alhambra area, predominantly Asian, that I initially thought this has got to be a hate crime, racially motivated. Then I learned that the killer is of Asian descent. Then I learned that he went to another dance hall. So it is possible that this killer has a personal connection to either one or more of the dance halls, and that there is some kind of personal vendetta that might have existed that led him to do such a heinous crime. That said, though, I mean, this guy knew, Jillian, that this was the Lunar New Year celebration. He knew there were thousands of people out celebrating. He knew that most of the people celebrating in Monterey Park were Asian. So the law enforcement really has to do a deep dive to find out whether this was a hate crime.
And Brian, you're a local, as you mentioned. This active scene right now where they've surrounded this white cargo van, this is actually directly across the street, very close to Del Almo Mall in Torrance, which is a very, very popular area. I want to ask you about what we're expecting to hear in this upcoming press conference. LA County Sheriff's Department is running about 30 minutes late now. They initially said this was going to be at about 2:45 local time. Obviously, with this sort of a breaking news situation, we oftentimes see these press conferences get extended as detectives have to gather details and confirm certain information before they put it out to the media. What are you hoping to learn in this press conference? What I'm hoping to learn personally is the suspect alive or dead inside of that vehicle? Is he even inside of that vehicle? Obviously, I don't think we're going to hear anything about potential motive just yet, but given what we've been looking at with the kind of the tone around that vehicle right now, are you expecting to get an update from law enforcement that this threat, who they've considered in their release armed and dangerous, keep an eye out for this guy, that this threat right now is essentially neutralized?
Yeah, Bill, so I think that the press conference has been delayed a bit because law enforcement at the scene in Torrance is contemplating going in now to apprehend the suspect, to do what you said, to validate that he killed himself. I think that's what people want to find out. Two things. Is the driver of that white van dead or alive, right? Number one. Number two, if he is dead, then there's got to be a gun inside there, right? Who's that registered to? You've got the gun from the shooting. He probably has some identification on him, driver's license. You can then take his DNA and match that DNA, hopefully, with the DNA on the gun that was seized at the ballroom where the mass shooting happened. So these are some of the things we want our sheriff in LA County to talk about, so that people in the community can have some sense of security and a more calm feeling that this really is the guy that did it.
Yeah, and it's pretty obvious they got a pretty quick indication of who this guy might be, given that photo that they put out. It looks like they got some sort of surveillance video or images very quickly, able to put his face out to the public. Clearly, they were able to track down that van quickly enough to identify it and reportedly try to pull it over for a traffic stop. So they were able to do that within, the shooting happened at 10:30 p.m. last night. That's some pretty fast police work, maybe 14 hours worth. They were able to apparently find this guy and the van connected to it. As we wait for this press conference to start, you mentioned you survived that Las Vegas shooting. There are 10 survivors of this Monterey Park shooting who are injured in the hospital right now. Take us into what that experience is like when you're just out trying to have a good night, have a good time, and then all of a sudden you just hear the boom, boom, boom of gunshots going off.
Yeah, Bill, it's an emotional experience for me as well. Waking up and learning about this, I will tell you, it's the worst experience on the planet, because you're at an event. I was at a country western concert. My guard's down. I'm just trying to have fun and relax and enjoy my life. So when I hear this happening again, I can be in the shoes of the folks that are in there, because they're just celebrating life, Bill. And they're in there and they're not expecting this. And that was the hardest part about being in a mass shooting, is the feeling of just utter helplessness. You have nowhere to go. And that's what I still experience in my life. I want people to know 5+ years after the shooting, I still experience that helplessness whenever I'm in a crowded place or when I'm at a big social event. But these people had nowhere to go. They don't know where to go. Their life is flashing in front of them, Bill. And what I was experiencing is I'm a single father of a daughter. I'm sure a lot of these people in the shooting are feeling that. Like, am I going to see my loved one again? Am I going to see my daughter again? Am I going to see my son again? This is not how I want to die. We live in the United States. I don't want to be dying at a ballroom celebrating a Lunar New Year because of a killer that's just shooting and killing. So it's the most horrifying thing that somebody could ever experience. The way I described it, Bill, I may have even talked to you after the Vegas shooting, is you lose part of your soul. So for the people who died, the families have to go through that grief. For those who survived, that part of your soul's gone because you experienced something like that. And my hope through this, I'll share this with you, is after another mass shooting like this, my hope is that we can look back at these shootings and then try to learn again, right? How we can prevent the background of this shooter again. Could we have prevented it? I mentioned on an earlier segment, why not at every big social event have dogs that can sniff ammunition, Bill, for example, a mile away? So, even in the darkest moments like this, we have got to rally as a country and try to come up with ways, again, to prevent this, because this is life-changing, not only for people there, Bill, the community, you guys reporting, first responders. This is going to be seared in your soul for the rest of your life. Rest assured.
Brian, thanks for joining us, sharing all that. If you'd be so good as to stand by.